for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
May I just remind you of a truth? Is that we don't remember anybody who lived a life of ease. We don't even know their name. They never make the history books. People who lived in a comfort zone, in the area of security in their life. They are people who dared to do something. So when was the last time that you did something for the first time? And you need to just ask yourself that question. I love something that Julia Sorrell says, that if you are never scared or embarrassed or hurt, it means that you never take any chances. If you're never scared or embarrassed or hurt, it means that you never take any chances. But it's time for you to get out of the boat now. It's time for you to get out of your comfort zone. And unless you decide a different course, you will end up where you were originally headed. Please remember this, that all change begins with a decision. Please make a note of that. All change begins with a decision. Say that with me. All change begins with a decision. All change begins with a decision. To change from where you are, you must decide where you would rather be. But all change begins with a decision. Are people who dare rare? Absolutely they are. It's lonely at the top. It's lonely when you dare to do something that the crowd won't do because of what people will think and what they will say, and that people might laugh at you. But let me just tell you, when you dare to do something that is out of the comfort zone, that is out of the zone of security, whenever you take risks, you're not going to find the crowd out there. It is a lonely journey. You do a lot of practice by yourself. You do a lot of working behind the scenes by yourself. You got to make your own business work, and you're up at nighttime. Some people think that if you work for yourself, that you got it made because you can get up when you want to get up. Let me tell you something. You work harder for yourself than you work for anybody else. Because you don't have folks that you can point to and say, do this and do that. You got to do it. When you first start something off, you got to be the janitor, the accountant, the marketing expert. It's amazing. I had a friend of mine, and she was starting a little publishing thing. She printed a book, and people would call her to order a book, and she'd answer the phone. She was the receptionist. And she had to act as though she was a big operation. So she would, they would say, I'd like to place an order. And she said, would you hold, please? And let me put you to the ordering department. And she'd put them on hold for a minute, and then she'd come back and just talk to them in a different voice, with a different accent this time. And it was so interesting. And then they would ask, well, can you set me up on a payment plan? Let me transfer you to the accounts payable department. And so I dare you to be an eagle in your life, a leader like an eagle. Eagles don't flock. You don't find a flock of eagles. They're not looking for folks to hang with them. Eagles are always found by themselves. Every now and then you might see 2 or 3, but you don't see flocks of eagles. And they're the only bird that can actually fly transatlantic. They can fly over the deepest ocean, because these are exceptional birds, but they don't travel in flocks. Remember that when you fly, birds of a feather not only flock together, they also fly to the same destination. And if you don't like where the crowd is going, you better fly off and become an eagle in your own right. But you become an eagle by a decision. Now, if you were walking around with chickens and turkeys, they don't fly. They have wings, but they don't fly. And I'm just telling you that there are people that have potential, and they don't even half use it. Don't be afraid. It's all right, because let me just tell you, you'll be in school being different. There are people that were in school that, looked at me, and they might have wanted to call me nerd because I was going to have my homework. If I was the only one in the class who had their homework, homeboy had his homework. They called me nerd then, but they call me boss now. I will declare to you that if you do what you need to do when you need to do it, are you listening to me? if you'll take care of your business and that stuff that will make you lonely. I can't tell you how lonely I was as a teenager. And I can't tell you how lonely some of my walk is right now, even being married with 5 children. There's a loneliness in the dimensions that God will call you. Make a decision to take some dares in life. Decision decides direction. Decision decides direction. Direction dictates focus. And focus determines effect. I'm just giving you some of my Bronnerisms. Is that okay? Decision decides direction. Direction dictates focus, and focus determines effect. It seems universally true that people who have direction in their life live their lives in a faster way. They go farther and faster and get more done in all areas of their lives. No steam or gas ever drives anything until it is confined. And you may wonder sometimes, why is it that God puts you in a position in your life where your life seems confined, to where you're stuck in this position? But steam and gas don't power anything until it becomes confined. And the pressure builds up, and it is that very pressure itself that actually drives the thing once it has been confined. And so when it looks like God is fencing you in, maybe God is preparing to build you up so he can blast you off. And so no life ever grows until it is focused, dedicated, and disciplined. No life ever grows until it is focused, dedicated, and disciplined. I love something that Lily Tomlin said in regret. She said, I always wanted to be somebody. And then listen to her next words. I should have been more specific. Because decisions demand specificity. If you don't know where you're going in life, any road will take you there. And what happens, we ask God for stuff, and we are so general in the ask that we don't recognize the answer when it comes. You ask for a car, but then when something shows up, you don't even recognize it. Because you had this preconceived notion, and maybe we weren't specific enough to be able to recognize the answer when it came. She said, I wanted to be somebody. I should have been more specific, because everybody is somebody, but you may not be the one that you want to be. You have to specifically determine and decide who you want to be. Let me just tell you this. You are known not only by the company that you keep, but you are also known by the company that you shun. So you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision in your life if you'll ever become exceptional. And I told you that I was going to give you a wonderful key of life. And here's that key in Ephesians chapter 3 here. Notice here, Ephesians 3:16, that he would grant you according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might through his Spirit in the inner man. Now, I want you to put strengthened with might on your paper. Strengthened with might. Strengthened with might. And then notice in verse 17, that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. Just put on that, dwell in your hearts through faith. Strengthened with might first. Dwell in your hearts through faith, secondly. Then the third element here is being rooted and grounded in love. Put on that, being rooted and grounded in love. And then the fourth thing is in verse 18 here, is may be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width and the length and the depth and the height. Just put comprehend with all saints. Comprehend with all saints. Because what this really is speaking to us about is a balance of life. Because balance is the key to life. I know some people who are super achievers, but they build the business of their success on the altar of their family. And that is out of balance. It is something seriously wrong when you chase dollars to the degree that you lose your marriage and cause your children through neglect to become wayward. It's not worth it. That's what you call a Pyrrhic victory, where you win, but it costs you so much to win that it wasn't worth it. It's almost like Jesus asking the question, what does it gain a man, profit a man, to gain the whole world and to lose his own soul? There are certain things that you don't want to gain at certain expenses. That I don't even want that if it's going to cost me this. You ought to be able to look at certain people in your life and certain experiences and say, I can't afford you. Strengthen with might, I want you to put in parentheses, physical. Physical. Strengthen with might, physical. Might refers to your physical endurance, physical strength. Dwell in your hearts through faith. I want you to put spiritual. Faith is about the spirit. Dwell in your hearts through faith. Put in there spiritual, in parentheses. Then being rooted and grounded in love, put in parentheses, social. Social. And then comprehend with all the saints, put in parentheses, mental. Comprehend, mental. These are four particular dimensions of life in which we must always be balanced. Strengthen with might, the physical, the spiritual, the social, and the mental. Your mind cannot command unless it first learns to obey. You have to gird up the loins of your mind. You have to make your mind obey you before it can command. Did you know that victories are thought out before they are fought out? Daring people can't afford not to think. You know, the big prizes are for those who dare to think hard and to think often and to think creatively. You know, when Henry Ford wanted to get unbreakable glass for his automobiles, his new models, he made a conscious effort that he was not going to see any of the experts, because the experts knew too many reasons why it couldn't be done. So Henry Ford said, bring me eager young fellows who do not know the reasons why unbreakable glass cannot be made. And he said, give this problem to ambitious young fellows who think nothing is impossible. And you know what? The end result? Henry Ford got his unbreakable glass. Have you ever gone to somebody that was a so-called expert and they told you why you couldn't do what you were trying to do? Why it wouldn't work? Maybe they've been stuck in a pattern of thinking too long, and they need to go back and dream again. Now here's something that I want you to gain from this. Any fact facing us is not as important as our attitude toward it, for that determines our success or our failure. And the way to think about a fact, the way that you think about a fact may defeat us before we ever do anything about it, because we are overcome by the fact because we think we are. And have you noticed that you can always find an excuse for something that you really don't want to do anyway? Many years ago, there was a professor at Oberlin College. He suggested to his class that someday a new metal called aluminum would become economically produced so that it would be used for 1,000 practical purposes. And this is what he said. It has never been set free. He said, a fortune awaits the man who can release aluminum. And that word fell as seed into the mind of a 19-year-old boy. Charles Hall. He was the son of a missionary to the West Indies, and he began to work with little crucibles that were furnished by the professor. And finally, a drop of pure aluminum. And then he discovered aluminum in commercial qualities only because he dared. He did it, and when he died, he left 1/3 of his fortune to Oberlin College. 1/3 of it was left to foreign missions, and another third was split between Berea College and the American Missionary Association. See, the whole world benefited when Charles Hall decided to think creatively. Just because somebody dropped a thought in his mind of something that could be possible. But stagnant minds are the greatest obstacles to progress. Charles Kettering, who was a wonderful inventor and became president of the General Motors Research Corporation, he was one of the most creative minds in America. And you know, he got tired of jumping out of his car to crank his car. You know, you used to have to literally crank a car. He got tired of cranking the car, and so he says, why not start the car from a switch on the dashboard? And then off went his creative mind on another adventure, and the self-starter was the result. And then Kettering found out that it took 31 days to paint a car, because they would put one coat on, let it dry, put another coat on, let it dry. The process took 31 days. And he went to them and he says, listen, this needs to change. He said, I want you to be able to paint a car in 1 hour. They laughed at him. They said, we might be able to shave off a couple of days. But you know, he found a painting process that was done on toys, a deco process. And they studied some things from that. And guess what? They were able to paint an automobile in 1 hour. Because a man dared. He thought outside of the box. He dared them. And they found a way. They thought he was crazy at first, but he found a way. Did you know that opportunities are popping out at you at every moment? And you just simply got to learn how to interpret the usual in an unusual way. And then something begins to happen like dynamite on the inside of you. There was one professor. He was buttoning up his vest. And all of a sudden, his fingers got stuck because his young daughter had sewn the buttonhole closed. And when he was doing it, you know, I mean, it fumbled his mind. He couldn't understand. He was doing it without looking. And then he realized that our fingers have memory. And his fingers were so used to just going by routine and doing the buttoning so that when he got to one that was sewn shut, he was there, and his mind had he had a brain freeze. And he realized that he had been buttoning this thing on autopilot. When you do stuff over and over, your mind will disengage. Have you ever been driving and then you get home and you can't even remember passing by certain places? It's because you were on autopilot. Because the mind becomes an emergency organ. It lets everything else do what it does, and the mind will only engage itself and come on the job when there is an emergency need. So when they sewed up the buttonhole, it created an emergency, and his mind woke up. And he realized that when you are doing the usual patterns of life, the way you do it, your mind is totally unengaged. You get up in the morning, you go to the bathroom. So much of what we do is routine and habit that our minds are disconnected. Our minds are disengaged. And it takes something, a snag here. It takes something being shut off here, where it no longer works according to the way that it has been working, and now all of a sudden, when you have to take a detour from the way that you've been going, now your mind has to get on the job and help you through this crisis. And there are certain things that will never be engaged. And so this professor that had a wake-up call that day, he started playing pranks on his class. just to throw things out of the routine just so that their brains would become engaged once again. He would sometimes hide their notebooks. He would do all kinds of crazy things to play pranks on them so that their minds would have to be called into the emergency situation. And so that's really called physiological memory. And so when he did that, he engaged the mind in a total different way. Total different way. And that's why you have to be so careful about an excess of entertainment in your life. We call that amusement. But now notice amusement. Now when you use a little word etymology, amusement, you know, ment means on the end of something means the state of. The state of. The state of amusing, amuse. Amuse. A is a Latin prefix that means not or none. Muse, M-U-S-E, means to think. Amuse means not thinking. Anytime you're being amused, and what's amusing to us is that we don't have to think. When you watch television, that's amusement. You don't have to think because you don't have to figure out the mystery. They'll show it to you. They've already figured it out. They've already put a lot of thought into it, and so they've done the thinking for you, and so too much television will cripple your thinking. Your mind will be on vacation because you're just taking an amusement ride. Put in the state of not thinking. Now, I know we all need moments of not thinking. So please, I understand that. We're talking about balance here. We need times of not thinking, but my God, there are times that we need our minds. And we can't afford for our mind to be on vacation. And you know, you have to just touch yourself and say, you know, mind, please don't leave me now. Don't leave me now. I need thee. Oh, I need thee. Every hour. I need thee. And it is true that we need our minds. So you don't want to overindulge in things that put your mind on vacation. Dr. Holmes, a noted psychologist from years past, said that 95% of people think an aimless, desultory, gossipy flow of ideas, and only 5% definitely direct and definitely arrive at conclusions. Only 5%. Dare to use your mind to break a bad habit. Dare to use your mind to create a winning idea. Dare to use your mind to read one book a month. Dare to attend seminars. I mean, what mental dare will you give to yourself in the coming year? Dare to do something that will exercise your mind in a total different degree so that you'll start thinking of different ideas. Ideas are the things that make the world change. They help us to evolve when you put your mind to work. And so we are connected to that creator God, Elohim. He's a creator God, and we are made in his image. And there is a power that is on the inside of you that is working. Now unto him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly and above all that you can ask or think. He can do above what you can think, but you need to do some thinking. If you'll do it, God will meet you. And once you start thinking one set of thoughts, God will cause others to multiply. Your ideas become exponential the moment that you start thinking them and sharing them. If you really want to see your mind begin to come up with possible solutions, bounce them off of somebody. Your productivity does not become twice as effective when you share it with one person. They become 10 times as effective. You will produce 10 times as much just getting with one other person and start bouncing ideas back and forth. You will produce 10 times more ideas than you can do by yourself. You are created in the image of God, and God is able to do exceedingly abundantly above that which you can ask or think, and it is according to the power that is within you. I mean, Paul writing saying that I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And we have to be able to tap into that power that is working on the inside of you, the same creative God that has given you creative ability. A problem is nothing more than an opportunity for you to use the creative gift of God in your life. Understand that a problem, by definition, is that which can be solved. If you've got a problem, it means there's a solution to it. If you can't solve it, it's not a problem, it's a fact of life. Don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. You can't change it. You know, we grow old. It's okay. It's okay. Thank God that you're alive. The alternative to growing old is dying young. So you can't do anything about it. Thank God for it. Look the best you can while you can. Put another coat of paint on. Let it dry. Then put another coat on. Do the best that you can with what you've got. Work with what you've got. Work with what you've got. Think of creative ways. I'm just here to tell you, we've got more creativity than what we know what to do with. And I pray, here's the challenge that we come into, is that creative people lack organization. Those two gifts operate on different sides of the brain. The creative gift operates on the right side. The logical thing that orders stuff operates on the left side of the brain. And so you've got a gift over here, but we need a counterpart so that we bring a structure and an organization. We have more creative stuff bouncing around in us that we don't even know what to do with and how to even order this stuff. How do I harness this stuff? How is this thing contained so that it creates the power or the pressure to blow me into where I need to be? But I need to be able to stir up this gift and to set my sail. And if you will set your sails, get on the water and set your sail, God will send the wind.
Thank you for watching Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner. Until next time, God bless you.